Hello and welcome to the Rewind, where we dive into the making and legacy of various films from cult classics to award-winning masterpieces. Today's movie is The Silence of the Lambs, the 1991 American psychological horror thriller that stars Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling, a young FBI trainee who is hunting serial killer Buffalo Bill, played by Ted Levine, who skins his female victims. To catch him, she seeks the advice of the imprisoned Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins, a brilliant psychiatrist and cannibalistic serial murderer. Directed by Jonathan Demme, written by Ted Daly, adapted by the Thomas Harris 1988 novel. The Silence of the Lambs is a highly influential movie. This is a film that not only made an impact in movies in regards to how we approach this horror and much more kind of sophistication, much more kind of like calmness, patience, as opposed to the slasher films that came before it. But it's also a movie that made a big change in regards to the way criminal police procedurals were done, especially on TV. You're not going to get a CSI, you're not going to get Criminal Minds, you're going to get any of these TV shows if it wasn't for what Jonathan Demme did with Silence of the Lambs. And talking about the film today with me is none other than Clare Bueno. She's an author, film journalist, filmmaker, a documentarian, cleaning up this town, the documentary and Ghostbusters. Highly recommend everyone check it out. I have the links down below for both the book and the movie version as well. And I also have the links for everywhere you can find Claire from my website to everywhere else because you really need to check out her stuff. And Claire, I thank you so very much for joining me today.
Oh, Matt, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very much looking forward to talking about this today.
So this is a really interesting film for me. When I grew up watching like horror movies when I was younger, the whole horror movie experience for me was kind of like the Freddy's and all that kind of stuff, right? Very kind of larger than life supernatural killers. The body counts were high. The the antagonists themselves were very kind of like over the top and such. When Silence of the Lambs came out in 1991, I was quite young. I couldn't see it in the theater, so I watched it later. But you can sense that there was something going on in regards to the genre of the films that it was making. There was a certain sophistication, there was a certain patience, there was a certain high quality to the craft itself, even though we're talking about a film that mentions has a cannibal has another serial killer that's like flaying his victims, all these kind of things that could have been really exploitative in someone else's hands, but Jonathan Demme does something with it. So when I did eventually watch it, I was kind of taken aback with not only how it changed the way things were done beforehand, but how it kind of laid the ground for so many other films afterwards. Like I said in my introduction, there's not going to be a Seven, there's not going to be Mindhunter, none of this stuff at all. Anything to do police procedural serial killer movies goes back, I think, to this film. There's pre and post. What about you, Claire? Do you remember the first time you came across Silence of the Lambs and what type of impact it had on you?
Yeah, do you know what? I was thinking about that. I don't think I saw it at the cinema. I think I'd have seen it on VHS.
Hmm.
I think, or was it DVD? That's a very good point. Gosh, my memory doesn't go back. So it was. I don't remember seeing it at the cinema though. In later years, I actually went to the New Beverly, which is Tarantino's 35 mil cinema in Hollywood, and I went and saw it on the big screen then, and it was absolutely glorious. It's such an impactful movie, and I think for me, seeing it, you've got this really sort of strong but vulnerable female protagonist, and we're seeing kind of the FBI. I mean, I love this whole kind of the way that how the mind ticks, the psychological profiling. Why do people act and do the things that we do? I don't think we'd really seen anything about that whole kind of behavioral science, like you say, Mindhunter. We wouldn't have probably had Mindhunter if it wasn't for Silence of the Lambs. So we're seeing, what makes the brain tick. In a new and fresh way for the very first time, I think.
So this movie is based on a novel by Thomas Harris, the second of his Hannibal Lecter films. The novel came out in 1988. The first novel was Red Dragon. That was adapted into a film called Manhunter. Came out in 1986. Michael Mann directed that. That had Brian Cox as Hannibal Lecter in that film, famously. It didn't do well. Critically wise, he did much better years after. It's more of a cult classic now. But when it came out, it didn't do much at all. So when they came to shopping around the idea of doing a second, Thomas Harris, um, uh, Hannibal Lecter movie
Adaptation. Yeah.
adaptation, like a lot of people weren't really that interested. But one person who was interested, interesting enough, was Gene Hackman. So I read
Yeah.
that he bought the rights for it, along
Yeah.
with Orion Pictures, and he was set to direct and star as either Jack Crawford or Hannibal Lecter. And the negotiations were split. There was like $500,000 for the cost of the
Yeah.
rights. And not only that, if this is kind of crazy just to think of it business wise. So Manhunter, the rights for all these characters were owned by Dino De Laurentiis. He actually just lent the rights to Orion for free. He didn't see anything was going to be made from it. So he just
Yeah.
gave it away to him. How crazy are you going to be to look back,
Yeah.
imagine in his
Yeah.
shoes and look back and think, oh my God, I had kind of like the greatest, probably movie monster of the 90s in my hands and I just let it slip
Yeah.
away for nothing.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely true. And I heard as well that Robert Duvall was actually Orion's first choice to
Mm.
play Hannibal Lecter, which is ironic, as we lost dear Robert Duvall last night, yesterday, didn't we? I believe it was announced. So yeah, I mean, can you imagine Gene Hackman? And they did give him the money back apparently because it was too gory, wasn't it? Apparently for him in the end.
Yeah, that's
And
right. Yeah.
and then you see apparently Jonathan Demme saw um saw Anthony Hopkins in The Elephant Man
Yes.
and loved that nuanced performance that he gave as the sympathetic doctor, and he went over and met Anthony Hopkins, who was in theatre at the time, and discussed him playing it. So, but isn't it funny as you cast your mind back, you couldn't really imagine these parts being played by any other people and having the right. It's that alchemy, isn't it, of the right cast and crew that just create movie magic.
And a lot of times it comes back to the script, right? I mean, the script is what
Yeah,
people draw
absolutely.
this to it. You have this guy named Ted Talley, who at the time was
Yeah.
also working in theatre. He is signed on when Hackman's on board with everything. So when Hackman leaves, they're still saying, look, keep writing, we like what you're doing. And then at around this time, that's when they started looking around for different people. Supposedly they went to Amblin Entertainment, who was Steven
Oh,
Spielberg's kind of
yeah.
company, and he said, not too dark. That's the kind of thing everyone's saying, too dark, like because again, people can think now of what they see on TV and screen, whatever is kind of full on. We're talking like late
It
80s,
was shocking.
early 90s, shocking stuff here. And then they go to Jonathan Demme. And he was more known as a documentarian, but he also did something wild and a bunch of other stuff as well. He actually signed on even before reading the script because he loved the novel so much. And then he and Ted Daly kind of got together and talked about it. And then they had phone calls and talked about everything. But interestingly enough, one of the big reasons why Jonathan Demme wanted to do this role is because he said in a quote I saw in an article he did with an interview he did with the New York Times in 1991, he said it dares to present in the bullet spewing 90s the idea that the effort to save the life of one person is worthy of a movie. And that's the truth about this movie. Even though we're talking about serial killers, we got this one person, just one, hanging in the balance. And it's all about saving her before, the Buffalo Bill can do what he has to do with her. Whereas compared to everything else, and this is something Demi comes up all the time, it was just about mowing down a bunch of bodies with action stars and then doing a one
Yeah.
liner. He really wanted to show that death in its and murder is something that was grisly. It was cold. It was really kind of like nihilistic, but at the same time, it's a deeply humanistic story because he wants us
Yeah.
to invest in the stakes of this one life here. And
Yeah.
I think that's just
Yeah.
a really interesting way for a director to kind of approach material like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we also see it, and you see it from the way, with the use of close-ups. We're kind of seeing it as well very much from Clarice Starling's POV. And through her eyes. I mean, there are some things that it kind of mixes it up, but as a whole, when you look at it's told very much from her sort of point of view and her observations as well, which was kind of really refreshing too.
It's something that's really interesting about Demi's work, isn't it? Because I remember him doing that in Philadelphia as well,
Yeah,
in a couple of other movies. Is these where you are kind of like almost kind of like in the shoes of the character, their POV, but it's almost kind of like voyeuristic as well at the same
Yeah,
time. It's kind of, he wants you to place you there. He wants you
yeah,
looking at Lecter's, those dead eyes
yeah,
and such. And I think it was just like such an interesting way to approach that kind of material, because it is kind of off-putting, to be able to
yes,
be put in front of someone like that and they're talking straight to you, straight to the camera. Yeah, I can't think of anyone else who even these days kind of works like that. It's such an interesting way to go about it.
yeah, it is. And also, when you think about how many, the kind of the beating heart of that film is Lecter and Starling, that kind of dialogue, that exchange between the two, and the kind of the interesting way that and creative ways that they use cinematography to make it engaging. So it just wasn't like pong. Do you remember that game ping pong, or where,
Yes.
first computer games? It could be very stagnant in the wrong hands. That could not have been shot right, but they I think they really intelligently used the composition of the shot to engage the audience, and like you say, to look into the windows of the soul. And I mean, Anthony Hopkins, his stillness is almost like it's almost like a hunter, isn't it?
Hmm.
That kind of predator. If you think of a wild cat in the wild before he's about to pounce on its prey, it's still it doesn't run around frantically. It uses its motion very conservatively and economically, so it enables you to pounce. And you've always got that feeling, that threatening feeling with Hannibal Lecter, that he could pounce at any moment.
To me, it reminds me of like a great white shark. You ever watch kind of like those
Yes. Yeah.
POV shark diving videos of people being in the shark
Yeah.
cage and the shark would just kind of come up and all of a
Yes.
sudden it's be like a sudden movement? That's what it reminds me of. Because one of my favorite movies is Jaws, and
Yeah.
there's
Me
that great
too.
line, one of the monologue in the film that Robert Shaw does, was that when the shark bites down, the black eyes rolls over white. I imagine that's
Yeah.
when Lecter attacks, that's when he's most
Yes.
alive, it seems to me.
Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
what's something that really kind of, it's what freaks you out because of the
Yeah.
patience and just him coming up when he thrusts on you. It's so unexpected. It's a shock and the violence and everything. It's really
Uh,
creepy.
it is, yeah, and I don't know whether, I mean, hopefully your audiences would find this interesting, but my friend is an actress called Vivian Reed, and she trained at the Drama Centre, which is the same school that Michael Fassbender, Tom Hardy, Helen McCrory came out of. He taught. Oh God! Well, he taught Anthony Hopkins, and Anthony Hopkins based Hannibal Lecter on Christopher Fettis,
Yes, right,
who
yeah.
was the head of the drama centre. And so she told me that story for years, and I met Christopher once before he passed away. That was a bit of an honour, to be honest. And he actually looks a bit like Anthony Hopkins, as Anthony Hopkins is now. And I remember him speaking, and he kind of just pounced forward, and it was just like, oh my God, I could see where it had come from. I kind of felt I was privileged to have a little bit of a taste into what had inspired Anthony Hopkins. And then Anthony Hopkins talks about it in his book, I believe, as well.
Mm.
So, but yeah, so it's incredible the way, how they source different people to help influence. Who'd have thought a drama teacher could influence a psychopath? And I think that's
Um,
interesting as well, because we're talking about sociopaths and psychopaths. We
yes.
weren't really talking about that back then.
No,
You
I
know,
mean, we're
those
talking about
labels.
supernatural killers. We're talking about that kind
Yeah,
of thing. That was or maybe like the terrorist leader of an action movie. That was kind of like the
yeah,
main villain kind of thing. This stuff that,
yeah,
which is odd again, because at the time, 70s and 80s especially, the US was just rife with these real life kind of characters. So it was only a matter of time until there was a depiction like this to come forward. And while I'm
yeah,
sure there were many beforehand, Manhunter being an example, the way that they
yeah,
did it in this film, I think they just hit the right tone. Like you said, that alchemy
yeah,
of the director, writer, the cast, everything put together.
yeah,
Speaking of the cast, okay, Clarice Starling, Jodie
yeah,
Foster. This is
yeah,
really interesting, just reading about how she reads the book, And she's like, I just won the Oscar. I'm going to use some of my clout and I'm going to get this role. And Demi just rejects her. He's like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want you. He wanted Michelle Pfeiffer
Yeah,
because
that's
they
right.
did Married to the Mob together. So Michelle Pfeiffer again was like, I don't want to do it because it's too dark. So he leaves Michelle Pfeiffer. He goes to Meg Ryan. Demi said that she was slightly offended when he offered her the part. After Meg Ryan, he goes to Laura Dern, and Laura Dern was vetoed by the producers because they considered her relatively unknown. I don't think like Wild at Heart or Blue Velvet had come out then,
Right.
right? So maybe it wasn't happening. Then he goes back to Jodie Foster. And at that point, he's like, yes, you are the perfect person for this role. I don't know
Yeah.
what's wrong with me and going forward. Oh, and also Molly Ringwald said that she auditioned for the role as well. But they said that she was too young. So there was quite a lot of people there. But
Yeah.
Foster gets it in the end and perfect casting, perfect choice, even though
Yeah.
it was a roundabout way to get to her.
Absolutely. Well, apparently she really petitioned
Mm,
for the part. She approached Ted, what was his surname? Ted Talley, that's it, the
yeah.
screenwriter. And yeah, I saw her like a behind the scenes, making of, because I love all that sort of thing. And I'm sure your audience does too.
Yeah.
And she had phoned him up and said, I hear you're writing this screenplay. I really want this role. And then when she was auditioned by Jonathan Demme, he saw her walking down the corridor, this kind of like really determined, you know, kind of a subtlety, but almost this sort of very determined character, and then just saw Clarice Starling as she walked down the corridor, but absolutely perfect. I mean, she plays that vulnerability, but strength and stoicism. Intelligent as
Yeah.
well. And Jodie Foster's got this magnificent range, acting ability that just could bring all of those different facets. And she's just captivating to watch. I mean, magnetic.
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. So Jodie Foster said it was really important to her to play a woman who saves the women. Because she was in The Accused beforehand. I think
Yes.
she was kind of sick of playing kind of like the victims all the time, taxi driver and accused and all this. But she wanted to play that role. What's really interesting about her as an actor as well, what you were just stating, is that there's power. She's physically she's small, and there are many scenes in the movie where she's kind of like lost, kind of or sometimes lost in a group of men. Like she'll be in an
Yes.
elevator and she would look around like there's like other FBI agents like 6 foot or more, or Jamie Gunn would be huge, or Anthony Hopkins have a domineering presence. But she has such a quiet determination to her and a
Yes.
keen intelligence to her as well. And I think more than anything else, there's a tenacity to it that no matter what happens, and no matter how many times guys crack onto her, like people are just like cracking onto her, hitting on her any chance she gets belittled by a lot of people. She's really kind of focused more on the victim and anything else and doesn't let her ego, like no ego is kind of like being interfered here,
That's right.
which is why I think kind of like the Hannibal Lecter kind of character maybe likes her so much, because it's like she knows who she is. And she's willing to do anything to get and save this person who's
Yeah,
stuck in a
yeah.
pit. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's like you say, it's that quiet determination that she's got, isn't it, really? And she's like a dog with a bone, isn't she? That,
She is.
she's not going to let this go. And actually she's prepared to put herself at risk, again, to save the victim, the kidnapped victim at this point. And she, the way she, there's very instinctual sort of performance as well. This sort of small things. When she's in the when they're doing the autopsy, when they find the body and they go and she doesn't put the stuff under her nose to
Yeah.
disguise the smell. So all these kind of little telltale signs in a performance that, that it's a very kind of visceral performance. It feels, it feels very instinctual. It's so prepared that she can just run with her instincts and just be, Clarice Starling. It's a wonderful performance.
It is. It is. I think it's like one, and I still think to this day it is her best performance too. And she's got like
Yeah.
a just a catalog of great performances to her name. But that to me was the one that was so great. And I think as well, not we will talk about sequels later. The fact that she didn't want to reprise it and leave it
Yeah.
as it was very gutsy on her part, I think, as well, because she didn't want to mess with the legacy of what she made there. Anthony Hopkins, of course, took on the role a couple of times after, but that she didn't want to do it, I think it says a lot about her as a person as well, in regards to as well as being an actor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Anthony Hopkins, Dr. Hannibal Lecter,
Yeah.
no doubt probably one of the top 10 like movie monsters, that's out there. We mentioned before about how Anthony Hopkins was kind of found influences on how he wanted to shape his character. I actually found this really interesting article about Thomas Harris. So when the book came out for the 25th anniversary edition, he finally revealed who he based Hannibal Lecter on, because there's been lots of wild theories about who
Yeah.
who this is based on. So he said,
Yeah.
like back in the 60s when he was like a journalist, he went to Mexico to a prison, and because he meant to interview a prisoner there, a murderer. And while he's doing so, he starts talking to someone who calls himself Dr. Salazar. He claimed to be the doctor of the prisoner. And so he says that Dr. Salazar was a small, live man with dark red hair. He stood very still. There was a certain elegance about him. And after talking to him for a while, he started talking about torture and the capacity of human beings to torture. It took a real dark turn. And so afterwards, the warden said, I don't know, you know who you're talking about, but that man over there is a murderer. He was a surgeon, and he could package his victims in a surprisingly small box. And he said he would never leave this place. He's insane. Ironically, he did leave the place. He went on parole afterwards and started work with the elderly. But he actually based him on this man because it was so unassuming because of his intelligence and his demeanor. But underneath, there was a murderer there. There was a man, a surgeon, who dispatched his victims in really kind of grisly ways. So that's how kind of like Lecter came about in the literary sense. In the film sense, though, a number of people were attached to this film before Anthony Hopkins ever got there. So Jonathan Demme, he did a conversation with Paul Thomas Anderson back in 2014, I think. He said that Sean Connery was first offered the role, and he turned it down. And Jodie Foster also did back in 2017, I think it was. She also did a live conversation about the film. She said that other people considered were Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman. You mentioned before Robert Duvall. But Demi wanted a Brit, and as you said before, the Elephant Man. That was a movie he wanted, and so when he first gets the script, Anthony Hopkins, the agent said, "You're going to get a script. It's called The Silence of the Lambs," to which Anthony Hopkins said, "Is it a children's story?" And
I
after
heard
you
that
read 10
too.
pages, when you read 10 pages, says, I want the movie, I want it now. And they met, and all that other stuff came to fruition. But again, can you imagine like a Silence of the Lambs if you just like, parallel universe starring
Yeah.
Al Pacino and Meg Ryan? It would be very weird, wouldn't it? I
It would
mean,
be very,
this
yeah,
was the
it would,
man for
yeah.
this role.
100%. It's that divine timing, serendipity, the universe, planets aligning and all of that, isn't it? It's funny, isn't it? How many Brits play villains? And I wonder whether there's something to do with, theatre actors. That they do, their work translates very well on screen, even though I suppose in theatre they have to give a bigger performance to project to an audience.
Right.
There is something about the skill of a theatre actor, and particularly in Britain, if I may say that. We Brits make very good villains. Loki in the Avengers films, he's British. I mean, how many? What's it in? Oh, I'm trying to think.
Alan Rickman
Die
in Die
Hard.
Hard.
Alan,
Alan
thank
Rickman.
you for
Yeah.
reading my mind there. Thanks. Yeah, we do make, and he's just, yeah, just he's just phenomenal. And I wonder whether because he was less famous, there's less of an expectation. Um,
Well, the thing that Demi said was that when he met, he wanted Hannibal Lecter to not only be the smartest person in the room, but he had to think that he was the smartest person in the world.
yeah,
And I imagine that kind of intelligence was something maybe a Brit could convey more than an American could. Because I think when it comes to that, and also the pronunciation of words and accent and stuff like that as well,
yes,
there is
yeah,
something there to kind of like, for example, I think you're not going to be hard pressed to find an Aussie play a villain like that because it'd just be too. I mean, Aussies are playing villains. I mean, John Jarrett has
yeah,
played like was he Wolf Creek and all that, but that's a totally different kind. That's a really
yeah,
kind of rough around the edges, guy who
yeah.
likes, like in between, serial killing, likes to knock back a few beers and fart in his couch. It's a different kind of guy.
Yeah.
But
Ben Mendelsohn would be brilliant.
exactly, well, yeah, he would be, yes.
Yeah,
But yeah, I just think Hopkins was just fantastic in this, and even
yeah,
though I think that he kind of watered down the part with the sequels, even though he was fine in the sequels, the time there where he did it
yeah.
in this instance, even though only 15 minutes on screen, which is
Is it
really
really?
odd, just
Wow.
15 minutes, because there's some debate still to whether it's not whether he should have gotten the Academy Award, but whether he got Academy Award in the right category, because he got lead actor,
Yes.
and a lot of
Yeah.
people saying he should have been
Yeah.
supporting, but it's just because the presence is felt so throughout, and
Yeah.
he shows up periodically in every film. I mean, when he does it, it's just so memorable that it feels like a lead, even though it's only like 15 minutes of screen time. It's kind
Yeah.
of wild to think 15 minutes and is all that Hopkins gets because he's just such a haunting figure in the
Yeah.
way that he portrays Lecter is just something that just seeps into your consciousness and is just pure nightmare fuel.
Yeah, he's such a commanding presence, and he is, even when he's not in the scene itself, his presence is felt throughout because it's his guidance that's guiding Clarice, picking up the breadcrumbs of the puzzle to get to where she does. So he influences the film in such a big way, Hannibal Lecter, doesn't he? Even when he's not actually, in an actual scene itself. And again, another very instinctual performance. I was again sort of looking up the kind of the behind the scenes and things, and they were, where he's behind the sort of plexiglass. I don't know if you know this story, Matt, but so the reason they used that rather than the bars was because Jonathan Demme, it was going to be too restrictive as far as getting good shots of him behind the bars. So they used this plexiglass. And then the sound man was saying, "Oh, that's great, but how are we going to capture sound?" So they put those holes in. So from a purely technical point of view, those holes were drilled in so they could actually capture sound. But Anthony Hopkins, again, using his instinct as an actor, you know, used that smell, and he used it as a prop. And that was all, that was not rehearsed. That was all purely from, that, again, that instinct of acting, reacting to what the environment that's around you and using what's around you to help inform that character. I mean, it's just, to me, I mean, actually, that's a really fine example of actors just purely being in the moment.
I want to talk about something in regards to the character. I want to talk about top five scary masks in movies.
Yes,
Because Hannibal
yeah,
Lecter wears that kind of that muzzle kind of mask in the film.
yeah.
So I want to count down my top five, and you tell me what you think, and if there's anything you will add or subtract to it. So number
Sorry.
five, the hockey mask, Jason Voorhees, which the character only wears from the third movie. The first movie, he's not really a character in it. The second movie, he is, but he wears a sack. It's the third movie where he starts wearing a hockey mask. Iconic, just a really iconic kind of thing. Number four, the Frank the Rabbit mask from Donnie Darko. You ever seen Donnie Darko with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Oh, yes, yeah, a long time ago, but
That
yes,
rabbit character, that really kind of
yes.
disfigured kind of like rabbit kind of thing with the metal teeth and everything else. Really freaky because it's such a mysterious character as well. You don't really know what you're looking at. Number three, Mike Myers, Halloween, especially the first one, which
Absolutely.
supposedly was a William Shatner's Star Trek mask, which they just painted white over there because it was an independent film that John Carpenter
Yeah.
made back in '78. Number two, I'm going to put the Hannibal Lecter muzzle. One of my favorite Oscar moments, I don't know if you remember this, is when Billy Crystal hosted the Year to Decide the Lambs and
Yeah.
he came out with the mask on. And even Billy Crystal looks scary with the mask. I think any time you have a mask where you have to muzzle someone's mouth from biting you, it has an
Yeah.
impact. Number one for me, though, Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw
Yeah.
Massacre,
Yeah.
a mask made out of skins. And
Yeah.
talking about clothing made out of skins, Ted Levine as Jamie Gumb
Yeah.
also
Oh,
has clothing
amazing.
made out of skin. But
Yeah.
before we go on to that, how did you like my top five
I
mask there?
did. I did like that. Oh, you forgot Scream.
See, I'm not
Uh,
a big Scream guy. I'm not a big Scream guy, I
Oh,
gotta
right, I love
say.
Scream. Maybe
Yeah,
because it does it taps into that sort of, they borrow from all those, the golden age of the horror.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think with the Hannibal Lecter mask as well, you've got, they tried fencing masks
Hmm.
as testing all different types of masks. But that one, it looks like a leather face, doesn't it? If it looks like skin that's gone hard, and it's gross.
And the grates as well, so you can hear his
Yeah,
voice. It's just
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I know, I think you've really kind of, nailed that as far as masks are concerned. And what is it about masks that terrify us?
Well,
What
I
puts us
think
into fight mode?
yeah, it does, but it's also a thing of I got to tell you, this is a true story. So one day, I picked up my kids from school, and I'm going down the highway towards my house, and I stop at a red light, and it's a bit of traffic, so I kind of look outside the window, and the car's going past me. I could swear that a car went past me, and the person was wearing kind of like pantyhose on his head, kind of like a robber,
Oh
like a
yeah, yeah,
robbery kind
yeah,
of thing. And I saw it, and to this day, it freaks me out because it's not something you
yeah.
expect for someone to enclose their face in any kind of way. That was just using like a simple kind of clove garment. The masks of like we're talking about here is like
Yeah.
it also almost kind of brings about the true identity of the person while hiding the identity of the person, which makes it kind of
Yes.
odd. It's like a duality thing going on there. So when they slip the mask on, especially like these horror characters, that's when you
Yeah.
know they mean business.
Ye-
And I think that's something that's kind of scary about that. And also you can't, well, in case of Hannibal Lecter, you do, but for a lot of these guys, you can't see the eyes as well. So you
No,
don't
you're
know what's
right.
coming at you. Yeah, but Lecter
Yeah.
wants you to see the eyes. That's what he wants you
That's
to disarm him. Yeah.
that is very true, actually. Yeah, he wants that eye contact, and he wants to see right in you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Penetrate you basically with a glance, isn't it, and a gaze. Yeah,
The last cast member I want to talk about, Ted Levine as
yeah,
Jamie
brilliant.
Buffalo Bill Gum. Hot take I'm going to put here
Yeah.
towards you. Buffalo Bill is a scarier character than Hannibal Lecter. What do you say?
Yes, I think so because yes, I think in a physically menacing way, I think Hannibal Lecter's much more controlled.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, there is something very murky and irky about him, isn't there? And I think even like Ted Levine really struggled to play the part. He said some of the research that he had to do on people like Bundy or Ed Gein was really he found it really really grisly. Um, and yeah, I think he is because he's much more. Um, again, like the Bundy thing, using the plaster cast to lure his victims in, and the kind of the physical. Yeah, I think he is, and actually, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Silence of the Lambs has two psychopaths, serial
It does.
killers in it, doesn't it?
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. Well,
which we
three
don't see very
psychopaths if
often.
you count Doctor Chislick as well, the Weasley kind of who, funny enough, is like I think people
Yeah,
hate that character more than the two serial killers because he's just
yeah,
such a weasel and a douchebag throughout the film. The
yeah.
thing about the Buffalo Bill character, the kind of I think that makes him so stands out, and you said it yourself, he's based on real kind of like people,
Mm,
and it's kind of like
mm,
amalgamation of these three. So there's three of them. You talked about Ed Gein, who kind of like
yeah.
he was a basis for a lot of like Psycho, Texas Chainsaw, and what Buffalo Bill does in this movie. And
Mm,
people, there's actually quite documentaries and TV shows. It's quite grisly stuff out there, people. So if you're gonna do a deep dive, just be warned
yeah,
about that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Ted
Because he did
Bundy,
you he
he did
yes,
dig up
yeah.
people and use their skins. That's right. Yeah.
Yes, he
Ted
did.
Bundy,
Yeah.
the injured arm, he'll pretend to be in crutches or whatever, a ploy to have his victims kind of come after him.
Mm,
Then there's another guy named Gary M. Heidnick,
that's
who
it.
kidnapped, raped, and tortured six women while holding them prisoner in the pit, where two
Mm,
died. So the whole pit thing. So this character, this guy, the Gary M.
mm,
Heidnick, you said before about how Ted Levine did
mm.
research. He went to Quantico, and a
Oh, did
person there
he?
at Quantico, whose name was I got the name. His name was FBI agent John Douglas. So he was like one of the first
Yes.
dudes, one of the first officers to use psychology. He's pretty much
Yeah. Jack
the
Crawford, isn't he?
Jack
Yeah,
Crawford, the real
yeah,
life version of him. And so when he actually went there, and the same thing happened with Scott Glenn as well. He actually
yeah.
played recordings of like
Oh my
what
God.
they did. Like there was actual recordings and stuff, and it changed both these men. Scott Glenn supposedly said he was very liberal in his stance to the death penalty beforehand, but that changed after he did
Oh
the
really?
research for this film. And Ted Levine said there was also something that really changed him as well. So he had to kind of figure a way to
Mm.
kind of get into this role. And one of the things he did do actually, because he was playing a cross-dresser, is that he actually went to kind of like cross-dressing like places like trans bars and stuff like
Mm.
that, and just hung out
Yeah.
with people there. And I think he has shown a lot of kind of regret. He actually there was an article and it just came out yesterday because of the recent 35th
Mm.
anniversary of the film. He said that there are a lot of things that he would do different now if he was going to play the role, or he probably wouldn't play the role at all because there was a lot of kind of accusations in regards from the gay community towards the role.
That's right.
Um, which I think, look, it's fair enough for people to throw stuff. I think just for me, and Ted Levine says this as well, he wasn't playing the character as gay or trans, whatever. He was just
It
playing him as a
wasn't.
messed up murderer. And I think that's
Yeah.
where everyone was coming from. Even Jonathan Demme said we weren't doing it with any type of sexuality, anything aside, just someone who is psychopathic. And that's kind of like the whole basis of what this
Yeah,
film's
yeah.
about.
I think he apparently he was saying that he saw the women's like the strength
Mm,
that the character James Gunn wanted to re re-inhabit or inhabit the strength and the power of a woman. It wasn't actually anything to do with being a transgender or a transvestite, and he's not a homosexual character either. He was the character is kind of obsessed with like female power.
mm.
That's what he felt motivated that character. And there was some controversy after it, isn't it? And there's kind of thoughts that perhaps Jonathan Demme doing Philadelphia afterwards was his way of
Kind of like
kind of
making
making up for,
amends.
yeah,
Yeah.
making amends, yeah, for anything that, because that, yeah, they didn't make the film with that in mind.
Yeah.
um
Well, we'll
yeah.
talk about Hopkins' voice. Ted Levine's got
Mm,
this really kind of baritone kind of voice
yeah,
in the film, and I think this movie, Ted Tally. I mean, it comes down to Thomas Harris, comes down to Ted Tally, but there's so many great lines of dialogue in this movie.
mm,
But I think the
yeah.
one that stands out for me, and I know a lot of people are going to say the bottle Chianti. I think that's been overplayed a little bit
Mm.
over the years, but from the one that stands for me is it puts the lotion on the skin before it gets the hose again. Now that
Yeah.
you can't put that on a shirt. You can't really, but it's like it's such a line of dialogue because it shows the character is really dehumanized the
Yes,
people that
absolutely.
he's killing, the women, by
They're
using
objects, aren't
it
they?
all the time, just objects, just
Yeah.
just cattle for his next for his skin suit or whatever he's making, which just in itself is just a
It's
line right there
creepy
as
as
well.
hell.
It's
Yeah.
creepy as hell. But I think the way that Ted Levine kind of
Yeah.
brings forth his use of his voice and just his physicality throughout the film as
Yes.
well is just absolutely fantastic. And I think he was robbed of a supporting actor nomination, supposedly, but
Yeah.
maybe they couldn't have more than one serial killer nominated in one year. I don't know, but he could have. I reckon he
Well,
should have gotten something.
yeah, that's a, yeah. It's not wanting to glorify. I mean, I know obviously Anthony Hopkins got the Oscar, but yeah, it may be it's casting too much of a light on sort of serial killers, isn't it? Really, and of course, the other shocking and very brave thing that Ted Levine did was, dare I say,
The
tucking
Tuck.
at the tuck. Yes, I mean, I just remember that was like shock, and people were really talking about that at the
Yeah,
time because you just hadn't seen that on any kind
no.
of mainstream film or TV. I mean, now nobody would bat an eyelid, would you? I think you could probably see more on a reality TV show. But that at the time really pushed boundaries, I think, and yeah, just shocking. Yeah, I just remember being like really shocked about it.
And I think still to this day, like when
My
you watch
innocent
it, you kind
eyes.
of like I like
Yeah,
watching kind of like on YouTube like movie reactions when people watch movies for the first time. And I'll be watching a couple of them for Silence of the Lambs, and whenever that scene comes back, even
yeah,
though these are might be like millennials or what have you, they're still kind of like, whoa, like they didn't
yeah,
expect that to happen. Because
yeah.
again, straight to the camera, there's no filter, no nothing. It's what Demi likes to do throughout this film.
Yeah.
So it's just again, it's like one of those kind of moments, and Ted Levine just a brilliant performance.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
brilliant and
so
brave as well.
very brave. So photography began with his film in 1989, wrapped up in 1990. They shot in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, some in West Virginia. Even Quantico allowed them to come in there and do some stuff in there as well. So interestingly, in the post, there was a lot of kind of like debate about what they're going to show violence-wise. And I think the
Interesting.
thing that maybe I think producers wanted more, but Demi and Ted Talley were like, we want to restrict what goes out, what type of violence is there, how long it goes for. We don't want to have like just a gory mess in there. And even though at times the movie can get gory, it's never exploitative, which I
No,
think
it's
is
not.
really, really important here. Like Demi's whole thing with this movie was like he wanted to make sure that when it comes to violence, like this kind of violence, it's not sensationalized, it's not
No.
exploitive, and because he wanted, and the Howard Shore score kind of fits in with this, he wanted to feel
Yes,
like something that
absolutely.
was terribly sad and tragic. We're counting down, like I think they have like 3 days before Buffalo Bill does his thing
That's right.
with his victim. We have to, we want people to get in there and really just, you know, feel for this person, and we want a sense of sadness, dread
Yeah.
throughout the film.
Yeah.
And the worst way to do that is to make it like a big gore show, which I think is
Yeah.
what something the other movies couldn't really get, like Hannibal, especially the whole scene with Ray Liotta's brains being
Yeah.
eaten and all that. There's a lot, right? And there's no way
Yeah.
Demi would have done something like that in
No.
whatsoever. And I think that's a really kind of important thing what they did here. No exploitation, no jump scare stuff,
No.
no sensationalism. They wanted to
No.
make this like a tragic kind of thing. And again, the tone comes back, I think, to a certain sophistication that this movie has that not
Yeah.
many people had at that time. And I think it really stands out even today.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we've obviously got to give the editor a lot of credit as well. The edit choices were phenomenal, but it's like you say, it's a really mature piece of work, and like you say, it's not gratuitous. It's not. It's very respectful. When they were going round the FBI, because they used the FBI Academy, the training academy,
Right.
for the locations at the FBI. So those brick walls are actually as it is. And when the production team were going through, they actually saw those cork boards with pictures of murder victims on the wall. And they obviously haven't they used actresses for the purpose of the film. But I think it deals with the context that in that in the real world, there really are victims of brutal murders, and it deals with that really very sensitively. Like you say, it doesn't sensationalize. Um, you know, these women that come to horrific, grisly demises that actually happens. And I really think, and I wonder whether the way that they use the kind of the FBI and the times and where they are and things, almost documentary style, isn't it? Kind of giving you that kind of more kind of realistic feel that this is it is a work of fiction, but rooted down, these horrors in life really do happen, and we definitely get that feel of authenticity. I
I
think,
think
even
that's
though it is obviously a
yeah.
fictional piece.
Authenticity is definitely the word I think you put towards this film, because even though there's been other serial killers since then, like
Mm,
something like Seven and such, which I absolutely
yeah,
love as well.
yeah, me too.
Um,
Yeah,
and, Zodiac, the David
yeah,
Fincher movie, I think
yeah,
it was a great film as well. The way that what Demi did with this film
mm,
is just brought a certain sense of tone, that authenticity you were
yeah,
talking about, that I think just changed the game. It really did.
yeah.
And people loved it. So the movie comes out February 14, 1991. So it grossed 131 million in the US, total worldwide $273 million. This is 1991 money, mind you,
Wow,
for a horror movie as well, about
wow.
a cannibal and yeah, and another serial killer who's flaying his victims. I mean, it's incredible.
It's grim and grisly, isn't it? Really.
Very grim and grisly. And also then you go to the Oscars. I think probably one of the best showings for like horror just in general at the Oscars.
Mm,
Picture, director, actor, actress, adapted screenplay. Craig McKay was nominated for film editing. Sound as well was a big thing in there. That was Christopher Newman and Thomas
mm.
Lynchman. It just went all around the board. I think it made Hannibal Anthony Hopkins a movie star.
Yes,
I mean, he
it
was
did.
working then. He was a like
Hmm.
great character actor theater, but this made him like a movie star.
Yeah,
And it made a franchise. It really did. Like
yeah,
after everything else. Speaking of the franchise, let's just go through these sequels just a little bit
yeah.
here. I'll try to get
Absolutely.
just a quick kind of observation from yourself in regards to them.
Mm,
Hannibal, 2001. Julia Moore takes over the
hmm.
role of Clarice Starling. Ridley Scott directs. Anthony Hopkins comes
Yeah.
back. What did you think of that one? Because to me, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag.
I did enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did Silence of the Lambs,
Mm.
or Red Dragon. Actually, thinking about it, because I read the books too.
Yeah, me too.
I was actually traveling around Australia. And I took the three books with me to read while I was traveling, and I did enjoy it. It's a very different film, isn't it? It's just a continuation of the story, but it's less of a detective story, isn't it? It's more Hannibal story. Um, it was beautifully shot. I mean, I do remember, like, it was Florence, wasn't it?
Mhm.
It was a good story, but oh my God, it was the pig farmer as well, wasn't
Yeah, that's
it?
right. Gary Oldman. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Gary Oldman, of course. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
disfigured. The one of the
Yeah,
Lecter's first victims who survived the mauling of his face. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I did enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as Silence of the Lambs.
Red Dragon, which also was based on the novel Manhunter. So this is directed by Brett Ratner. Hopkins is back,
Yeah,
but this time we got Edward Norton, Ray Fiennes playing the Tooth Fairy
Ray
character.
Fiennes.
Philip Seymour
Yeah,
Hoffman was in it, Emily Watson, stack cast, Harvey Keitel, like huge cast in this
yeah.
film. I rather liked this one. I think of the sequels,
Yes.
this is probably my favorite one, and it might be maybe I might lose points with the film bros out there, but I actually liked it better than Manhunter as well. I thought it was a really well made film.
Yeah, it's funny because we pendulum between if we're in the mood for a Michael Mann sort of like Miami Vice type feel, or we're in for hardcore. I mean, Ray Fiennes, I absolutely adore him as an actor.
Mm,
There's another British baddie,
it
Voldemort
is.
as well. I mean,
Hmm.
and again, that was really shocking. Do you remember the tattoos on his back?
Yes. Yeah.
And
The teeth. Don't forget the teeth as
the
well.
teeth,
Yeah.
yeah. And but you know what? I do remember when I read the book that actually he's a very sympathetic character because the
Mm,
abuse that he is, because you go more into it, that abuse that he gets from his grandmother.
yeah.
um he's really disturbing and upsetting, and you can, it's that thing, is it, are people, nature versus nurture, are they born that way, or are they conditioned through, their upbringing? And they definitely look into that in Red Dragon. But that big tattoo on his back, again, we didn't have, people weren't tattooed like that back then.
It's
So
true.
that's, seeing that on the screen was really shocking. And but just a phenomenal performance. Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's how I feel on the day is whether I'll go for one or the other.
Mm.
But which one do I like more? I might have to say I think I like that one. Yeah, I do, with Ray Fiennes and Ed Norton. Again, Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, I
There
think
was a
so.
prequel called Hannibal Rising. I remember reading the book. I didn't think much of the book, and the movie
Oh,
didn't do much for me either.
I don't even
Um,
remember it.
yeah, not worth remembering. Then you have the TV show Hannibal, which was pretty interesting with
Oh my
Mads
God,
Mikkelsen.
how could you say
Now,
that?
that one's really interesting because The Silence of the Lambs, like I said, inspired all of these kind of like these crime procedurals. It's your
Yeah,
CSIs, your criminal minds, where they kind of like have your profilers and you see the autopsy scenes and all that. And then the Hannibal series kind of joins those ranks, but it becomes one of the better ones of those movies. And
yeah,
again,
absolutely.
it's based on a Will Graham story, and Mads Mikkelsen plays Hannibal
Mm,
Lecter, who I think is a fantastic Hannibal
stunning.
Lecter. Incredibly
Yeah,
gory TV show though, like
yeah.
incredibly gory.
It was,
But
yeah, it was
yeah,
dark. Yeah, it
very
was.
dark.
Yeah.
But I really liked that. I thought it was pretty cool.
I did, yeah, yeah, and you got Gillian Anderson as
That's
well,
right, yeah.
playing his therapist.
Hmm.
It
Lawrence
just
Fishburne
an
as
out,
Jack Crawford.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, outstanding cast, um, and I think what was great, I suppose, about the TV show, as they do, it gives us time to explore the characters and take a deep dive into what makes them tick much
Mm.
more. So yeah, and Mads Mikkelsen, and funnily enough, they kind of, going back to kind of Silence of the Lambs, this whole thing about Hannibal Lecter wearing kind of designer clothes and very smart, and they
Great chef.
even, great chef, yeah,
Mm.
yeah, loves food. Yeah, really, yes, outstanding, but very, very grisly. I've gone back and watched that like series a couple of times as well. I always will go back to Silence of the Lambs because, like, it is one of my favourite films. But yeah, great interpretation, and opening it up to another generation that wouldn't know those stories otherwise.
Did you ever watch the Clarice TV show that came
Do you
out?
know, we watched it recently. What did you think?
I attempted twice to watch it and I couldn't get past 15 minutes of it, of the first
I,
episode.
I did see it to the end. I think, if I be honest, it was a bit of a box ticking exercise with
Mm.
the certain social agendas, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but it felt a little obvious. It was still kind of telling a detective story, but it was lacking something. I can
Mm.
understand why it didn't get commissioned for another series. I think they were trying to course correct, maybe, again, to do with the LGBTQ,
The Jamie Gum
um
character, yeah.
yeah, and the kind of the controversy that happened with Silence of the Lambs. I think they wanted to introduce that and correct that. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that was definitely a theme that was sort of running through the show. It just it's not, I think when they did Silence of the Lambs, that really was movie magic. It is a great, the other films are very good, but Silence of the Lambs is up there with Hitchcock, as far as I'm concerned, if I may be so bold. I mean, I'm to say that, but it is it's just got everything, a great pace, um, a phenomenal performances, authenticity. It just, yeah, something exceptional was made.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the TV show, it certainly wasn't bad. It was, but yeah, you can't compare.
You can't compare. And 35 years on now, Silence of the Lambs still reigns as, I
Mm,
think, one of the best. It's definitely one of the best serial killer movies,
mm,
horror thriller, psychological crime, all of that put
mm,
together. Again, like you said before, Claire, the alchemy
mm.
of everything just coming together,
Yeah.
considering all the different directors and actors and everything else that
Mm,
was attached to this. To be able to come to the cast that they had, the filmmaker that they had, and everything else, I
mm.
think is just one of those kind of great like moments in film history where they all kind of come together and made a film that not only is a great film, not only is
Yeah.
a movie that was highly influential, but
Yeah.
watching it again recently still
Yeah.
holds up. And
Yeah.
and and I think a lot of like the younger generation are going to be finding it again because of the Hannibal show and all that. And I
Yeah.
think I think a lot of people still like it because even though these days things are more violent, even though these days
Yeah.
things can be just maybe more depraved than they used to be,
Mm.
this movie here is just so the
It
atmosphere
set
and
the
the
bar.
tone and the authenticity set a bar. It really did. There's
Yeah.
pre
Yeah.
and post. There's pre and
Mm.
post this movie, and I
Yeah.
just absolutely love it. And I loved talking to you about it, Claire, and
Yeah.
for everyone
Thank you
out
for asking me.
and for everyone out there listening, go to the show notes. You can check out the links for all of Claire's work. And I really highly recommend for everyone, if you want to watch a really great documentary that delves into a making of a movie classic, the documentary "Cleaning Up This Town" is must watch. And you're doing one for Ghostbusters 2 as well. Is that something
We
that's
are,
still in the
yeah,
works?
too hot to handle. Remembering Ghostbusters 2 is complete. We are just now searching for the right deal, so we can actually release it. But there's a couple of little things just to polish off, but otherwise, yeah, we're good to go. We're incredibly proud of it, and if people loved Clean Up the Town, um, the story of the making of Ghostbusters 2, and the behind the scenes of what went on there at a very different time in film 5 years later, where visual effects are, those practical in camera effects are coming to a close, and digital is in the dawn of a new era. It's we're very, very excited to be releasing it.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.